Are you lost in the chaotic whirlwind of day-to-day busyness? Do you yearn for a deeper sense of meaning and purpose in your life? Welcome to Be You, Your Story, Your Purpose, the podcast dedicated to empowering women on their journey of self-discovery and finding their true purpose through their own story. I'm your host, Brenda Simmons. Welcome to the Be You, Your Story, Your Purpose podcast. Today, I'm so excited to have my guest, Jackie Roby, on the show. She is the founder and CEO of Inspired Journey Consulting, helping people who have been abused shift from self-doubt to self-empowerment. Using the perfect harmony of positive intelligence, human design, and mental wellness practices, she helps individuals shine in their brilliance and amplify their authentic voice. Through mindset coaching, speaking, and facilitating workshops, Jackie supports change in our inner and outer worlds. She is an international speaker, host of the podcast Through Inspired Eyes, chair of the Global Wellness Institute's Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Initiative, co-author of the best-selling book, The Ultimate Guide to Creating Your Soul-Aligned Business, and is featured in Aspioneer as a trailblazer women leader. One of just 12 women selected from across the globe. Jackie's vision through Inspired Journey Consulting is to enhance cultural wellness in the workplace, grow emotional intelligence, healing, and self-love for a kinder, more inclusive world. That is quite the bio, Jackie, and I'm so excited and thrilled that you would be willing to take your time to spend an hour with me to just discuss a little bit more about yourself and your journey and your own purpose. So I'm wondering if we can start out by just having you tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you got to where you're at right now.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Brenda, for having me. And I love what you're doing and the inspiration that you're bringing to the world.
Thank you.
So where do we start? I'm the youngest of three. I'm a Latina, but I was raised to assimilate. So, for example, when my aunt, my dad's sister would say, "You are Spanish, you are Mexican, you are Puerto Rican, you are not white," he'd be like, "Nope, I'm white. I'm white." And so that's the way I was raised. And a lot of that was really tucking in who you are. On top of that was this feeling of being perfect. I thought we had the perfect family. And I really clung to that image. And years later, I understand why I had to cling to that because of abuse that started for me when I was 3 years old. So through this journey of family dynamics, I end up finding myself in a career in sales and marketing in travel and hospitality. And it was the perfect place for a people pleaser. And I spent about 20 years in that space. And I did really well for myself and I made it fun. I made incredible relationships. But there came a point where I realized this isn't serving me anymore. And I need to create a change in my life. And what is that going to look like? And that brought me to launching my business in October 2019.
Wow. You bring up a lot of interesting questions for me. Number one, identity. I mean, it sounds like you've had to completely shift who your identity or what your identity is. Can you go a little bit into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So my mom is white. My dad is Latino. Um, my older sisters have my mom's complexion. And so it was really interesting as I look at comparison because they always embraced being Latina. They took salsa classes, they joined Spanish clubs, felt it in their bones. But me, You put me in a club and play salsa, I am completely uncomfortable. I don't know what to do with myself. So it was almost like the darker the complexion, the more I had to shift who I was and deny other parts of myself. There was another piece of that. A big one for me was around body image and body acceptance. I couldn't understand why my thighs looked the way they did. They seemed so big in comparison to my friends. And no matter how tiny I got, my jeans still didn't look the way they looked on, my best girlfriend who had blonde hair and blue eyes. And I looked in the mirror always wanting to be different. When we moved across the country, we started in New York and Long Island and then moved to Colorado. Then I became even more of an only and felt ugly. I will never reach that level of beauty. I will always be different. I'll never be wanted. So, cultural identity ended up becoming this self loathing instead of saying, this is who I am and who I'm meant to be. And part of genetics and culture and centuries worth of amazing people. I looked at it as me never being enough. And it wasn't until I met my husband that he said to me, Jackie, you're not white. You're a Latina and your body is perfect. And it's perfect. It's meant to be exactly how it is. And you're not supposed to look like this person over here or that person over there. That's not you. And I hadn't heard that before. So there was a lot of that, rediscovering that. And then when it came to that internal piece of, I had a role of being the peacemaker in my family. And so I was people pleasing and staying polite and staying quiet. But I was also being silenced because of abuse from my grandfather. So I learned at a very young age how to be quiet, how to be kind, and how to make everyone else comfortable, no matter what was going on inside of me.
That's hard.
Yeah.
And those are some really heavy mindset programs that you had to overcome. So
Mhm.
how did you number one recognize that? I mean, obviously your husband said something, but just because somebody says something to us and clues us in doesn't mean that we internalize it, right? So
Mhm.
how did you internalize what your husband told you and make that shift of accepting who you are, the way you are, and changing those mindset programs?
Well, I'll be honest, I had already been in therapy for quite some time since when I met him, and I felt like I was in a really great place. But in addition to that wonderful, kind comment from him, he had also said, oh, when I come to see you, it's like going to a funeral. You don't seem happy. I was like,
Oh, that just stabs you, doesn't it?
how could you imagine? I was so happy. So I was like, I've met the love of my life. I know that this
Right.
is it. I'm so great. What? So I went to a friend of a friend who guided me in the direction of some books to read and how to start my practice. And one of them, I have to say, was the ever famous Louise Hayes and
Yes.
um, You Can Heal Your Life.
Yeah,
That
that is an amazing book.
yeah. And I remember one of the exercises, and I still think about it, of how she said, when you're walking, repeat the mantra to yourself, I accept myself. I accept myself. I accept myself. And the first time that I had to do that, I was crying. I couldn't feel that. And so I spent a very long time with affirmations, with mirror work, um, and with gratitude, making sure that I was choosing happiness and that I was also believing all of those good things and finding all of those good things about me, all the things that I was beating myself up for. It was my challenge to myself to find ways to love them.
Right.
So it took a lot of practice. I do the work.
What this just popped into my head. The work can be really uncomfortable and it can be distressing at times. So, how have you been able to deal with that aspect of working on yourself?
Mm. Well, there was a pivotal moment in 2007, I believe at this point. I fell into a really deep depression. It had started the year before, but I waited too long to get the help that I needed. And I ended up with extreme paranoia. Knowing that now, knowing what I know now, it was from complex PTSD.
Hmm.
Um, but it was this compounded paranoia, CPTSD, depression, anxiety that was becoming panic attacks. I was having panic attacks nonstop. I could barely get through a work day. Sending 4 emails a day felt like the hardest thing that I ever had to do. I was terrified. And the fact that I made it to work and that most people didn't know is extraordinary, right? It really shows you what could be happening around you with somebody. And because of that low point, I never want to get there again. It was so scary. And it went on for so long. I was so, God, I was terrified of helping myself, of asking for help, of taking a sick day. I actually had a panic attack so intense that I passed out in the shower and hit my head. And my first thought when I came to was, I got to keep getting ready for work. I will never get there again. And so, no matter how uncomfortable those moments are, I know because of that low and what I had to do to heal, that it's worth it, that I am better and happier because I do that work.
That's a beautiful answer. And I've been through depression and just so many low lows and I totally agree with you. Like if you've been there, like this is not the life for me and I will never do this again. And so that's motivation indeed. So thank you for sharing
Of course.
that beautiful and heart-wrenching story. I appreciate your willingness to go there. Um, but obviously you've had some success with doing the work on yourself and now you are helping others do the same thing. But I'm curious, like did you ever think you would be doing this work as a little girl? Like what did you want to do when you were little?
No, I never thought I would be doing this work as a little girl. I didn't think I would be doing this work 4 years ago. But when I was little, I just wanted to be famous. That was really what it came down to. And I wanted to be unique. I remember that because I was like, oh, I want to be an actress. But then my oldest sister wanted to be an actress. And I was like, oh, I don't want to
You
compete with
can't do
that.
that then, right?
Exactly, right? And oh, maybe I want to be this. Well, my middle sister wants to be, oh, okay, maybe I want to be a model. Maybe I want
Yeah.
to do, maybe I want to be a singer. I don't know. Those were the things that we knew, right? At the
Right.
end of the day. But that's what I originally wanted. And
That's
then it shifted to kind of dreams disappearing.
well, I think they manifest differently. Because I've looked at that myself, the morphing of, even as an adult doing different things, right? Just like you have. And You know, I think it's okay to shift. The more we learn about ourselves and the more comfortable we become with who we are with our own identity, the more we want to express that authentically. And so I think it's beautiful that you have made this shift. So I'd love to go a little bit deeper into what you do now. So you like in your bio, you have, positive intelligence, human design, and mental wellness practices. And I'd love to take a deeper dive in each one of these. So, can you explain what positive intelligence is?
Absolutely. Well, let me start by saying that I use a system that's called MAGIC,
Okay.
right? And it stands for Mindset Tools, Articulate Your Feelings, Gain Insight, Integrate New Beliefs, and Create the Life You Desire. So, positive intelligence really puts us in that space of mindset tools.
Okay.
It is a phenomenal system. So, Shirzad Shamin is the founder of positive intelligence. And what he did is a 500,000 person study across the globe and found the 10 key negative factors in our brains and then the five positives. And then also how to use mindfulness tools, the fact that they were the most effective tools in order to build new neural pathways to take you away from that negative and into that positive. So that's what I work with when it comes to mindfulness is a scientifically backed program and applications and exercises to build new neural pathways and change the way that you think, really. In some of my programs, for example, I have Quiet the Self-Doubt Monster. That's one of my signatures. And I say quiet because we can't silence things. I'd love to say that we could, but we can't. It's always going to be there. All of that cruelty and things will be there, but we can turn the volume down and turn up the positive. And the more we build new neural pathways, the stronger they become as we continue to reinforce them through our practice. And then it'll be easier to see those things and feel those things and do them quicker and recover from the negative.
It's interesting to me that there are 10 negatives and only five positives.
Mhm.
Yet, so to me, that says that the five are so powerful that they can overcome the more numerous negative. Would you agree with that?
I love that. 100%. 100%. There's so much power in them. And it what's amazing about it is when we look at some of the negative things, we think, well, I see some strengths in there, right? And he calls them saboteurs. They're called saboteurs.
Hmm.
So, for example, the hyperachiever. People were like, oh, I'm doing great. I'm succeeding. That's wonderful, right? But if you're succeeding, but you're not feeling good about anything because you just keep going for more, so you're not celebrating any wins, that's where it takes over. Where instead you can take all of those great, you know, goal setting and um, excitement and passion and do it in a way that those five powerful positive strengths will use for good. And you'll have ease rather than distress.
That's beautiful. So, can you go over what the 10 negatives and five positives are? Do you have that
Sure.
off the top of your head? I know.
Sure. So it starts with the judge on the negative side. Everybody has the judge. And the judge comes to us in our childhood and usually is there to protect us. But then as you get older, takes over.
Hmm.
And oftentimes you have, a key message that the judge tells you. And so my messages, for example, are it's all my fault and I'm not worthy of unconditional love. So those are the two that battle. Well, then the judge brings in accomplices to help.
So it gets tricky.
And so there are 9 accomplices. And these can, are often part of just who you are, how you're made up. But I have noticed they can change based on where you are
Hmm.
in your world. So there's the pleaser, right? Who gives, needs to be liked. There's the hyperachiever, as we mentioned, the hyper rational, who has that great logical mind, but can dismiss empathy and emotions.
Hmm.
A hyper vigilant, who is, aware of danger and things around, but that's anxiety provoking. Um, the controller, who not only loves to be in charge, but often doesn't listen to ideas and just takes over. The stickler, who's a perfectionist. Everything has to go in that specific order. The restless, the restless comes into play when they just want fun. I don't want to feel that. That doesn't sound great. Let's go to the next fun thing. Let's go to the next fun thing. Let's go to the next fun thing. Oftentimes, we get the restless in this day and age because of technology. So, oh, I've got this window open. I've got this. I've got to do this. I'm watching a movie, but I'm check my phone. That's the restless
Totally
coming up,
distracted. Right, right.
right? The avoider. When I think of the avoider, I think of, the ostrich putting their head in the sand. I don't want to feel that. Kind of similar, right? But like avoids emotions, but then it also becomes procrastination. And I believe I've gotten to 10.
I wasn't counting, but
I wasn't
here we
either.
are. That was really interesting. And I sit here and I go, "Oh, do I do that? Do that?" And some of them I'm like, absolutely not. That is totally not me. But others I'm like, yeah. So I could see how you might identify with, you know, maybe one or two, but possibly with, little bits on multiples, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
And what I will tell you is that when I have had heightened states of CPTSD, I've experienced all of them at once.
Oh, wow. That's intense.
Yeah.
Super intense. Okay, so what are the five that you combat that
Yeah.
those with?
So there is empathy.
Huge. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not only empathy for others, but it's empathy for self. Right? Um, there is innovate. Now we have this chance to really look at things differently, build in new ways, but we often just shut down. But what if we changed how we think about that? Then we can become, bigger and better. Um, Curiosity, right? How can we discover? And instead of judging something or saying something is good or bad, can we just look at it as an observer, as a witness, and learn from that? Can we ask questions? There's activate. And activate is taking action powerfully, but mindfully. Right? So sometimes for example, as I think about abuse and setting boundaries, right? I might not have it in me to empathize with my abuser. I've overused my empathy. We're good. That's not going to work. And maybe I don't have the capacity to get curious and care what you're thinking about. That's just kind of what it is. And that's not the power that I need right now. But I can firmly and kindly set my boundaries. And that's activate as taking those kinds of actions and moving forward. And then there's a piece of it around self-command. And self-command is growing this muscle, right? Growing the awareness of what's actually happening. What are you feeling right now? Is it positive, negative, or nothing? Even those moments of saying, oh, you know what? Whatever I'm saying to myself, that's a saboteur, that's a lie. That's a strength building you in the right direction.
Absolutely. Those are beautiful. And wow, so, so powerful. And I'm so grateful that you explained those for us. Thank you so much. I've never actually heard of positive intelligence, and so I'm like, okay, I need to go and take a deeper dive in this myself. So I hope that anybody who's listening, if that intrigued you, that you will take that initiative as well. So that is a huge part of what you do, a huge modality. And then you use human design. Now I have heard of human design, and this fascinates me. And so, but can you explain that for those who have not maybe heard of it or just maybe don't understand what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting because human design came to me before positive intelligence. And I love how they go together because at the end of the day, they both care about loving yourself,
Absolutely. Yeah.
right? And that's the core of it. So human design, I like to describe it in two different ways, if you don't mind. So if I were to look at it from someone who might have a corporate perspective, um, if you were to take a Myers-Briggs or an Enneagram, in 3 years, who you are changes. And so your profile, your number could change. And then you're learning that all over again. Human design stays the same. You might change, but that blueprint is there for you from the beginning. It is, so now on more of the spiritual side, it is a synthesis of Eastern and Western astrology, the Chinese I Ching, the Kabbalah tree of life, Hindu chakra system, and quantum physics. So you can get your human design calculated by the same way that you would do a chart for an astrological chart. So your date of birth, time of birth, city of birth, right? And your name, of course. And what you find is your archetype, one of your main 5 archetypes, but it shows you who you're designed to be, who you are more consciously, and then also who you are more subconsciously. And as we get older, as we experience life, as we know ourselves, and mostly from what I see, as you heal and continue your healing journey, those subconscious destiny parts of your design become more relevant because you can see and feel them because you've become in touch with yourself. You're deconditioning what has happened, what the world has put onto you, and what life has put in your way and changed who you are. So the 5 archetypes, I always think that these are some of the most fascinating, are the manifestors. Manifestors make up 9% of the population. And they are, if you think about a meeting, They're going to stand up top front and kick it off and say, okay, here we are. Let's start. This is, where we're going. You have the reflectors. They are 1% of the population. In the meeting, they are going to be the temperature check in the room. They're going to see how everyone is coming together. They're going to get the balance of the idea of what's happening and what's being brought up. And if there is synergy, right, they mirror back. So if they're grumpy, there's potentially some negativity going on. You have the generator family. Now, the generators are made up of generators and manifesting generators. Both are designed to work. So in that meeting, they're kind of like the operations of it. Oh, you know what? I know how we're going to execute this, right? And the manifesting generators, they're multitaskers. So they're designed to figure out how to do it quicker, how to do it the most efficient way. So they're like, yeah, I like that, but let's maybe change this around, skip a few things, and then we can get here quicker, right? They get things done. So together they make up 70% of the population. And then there are the projectors. And the projectors, they're 20% of the population they make up. They are the visionaries. So they will look at this and say, okay, this is how the strategy comes into play. This is the player that makes sense on the team to bring this out. You've got a strength over here. I think this could work here. They have the big picture vision, and they're designed to give guidance. And each of them has not only that purpose, but then your unique design will show you how to make decisions in a way that matches your energy. And I love that. And that's changed how I run my life and my business.
So you've got, on the one hand with the positive intelligence, something that's very scientific, and then with human design, this is more spiritual and or mystic. And I can just hear people asking, okay, and you've probably received this question before. How is it that when you were born and where you were born, how does that dictate your personality, right? So what's your take on that? Because I have looked at my own human design and it is uncannily correct. It's crazy, right? And
Yeah.
so how do you explain that connection then?
Yeah. To be very honest, I don't. What,
It just works, right?
yeah, I don't because I'll say very similarly to the work with human design, right? Like I am fascinated by what happens in neuroscience, but I am not a doctor. Don't get it twisted. I went to school for communications, right? Um, so I know when it comes to getting your chart, I use a site, right? There's some bot or I don't even know programming behind it that does the math for me. I'm not doing it. I can't tell you. What I can tell you is what I see, right? And you kind of take it or leave it. Now, I've had people that I work with because when I do my coaching, my private coaching, I give them the choice. Do you want your chart? We can bring this in, but we don't have to if it's not a fit for who you are. Because I recognize that it doesn't always align. And that's fair. But even the people who are skeptics are often surprised and learn something and go, oh, that is interesting. Oh, I can get out of it this way. Oh, I can. It's a great way to make a decision. I hadn't even thought about that before.
So would you say the human design maybe helps know how to use the positive intelligence? Like like
Mm,
like I'm just trying to look at what's the connection. What is the benefit of using both? And that's kind of what I'm seeing is, because it helps you to know how you're processing things and perhaps your strengths and weaknesses and maybe how to put into play that positive intelligence. Would you say that's correct, maybe?
I might flip it actually. So
Oh,
here's what I
okay.
would say. So
Okay.
sometimes when you look at your human design, well, one of the great things I think is that you see your strength, but you can also see that when you're out of balance, it might come up as fear, impatience, frustration, anger, all of those things. So it's like this key. It's another key to go, oh, I'm out of balance, right? And you say, but how do I get rid of that? How do I get, sort of those things? That's where positive intelligence comes in,
Okay.
because that's the tool to get you to that point of being in balance, of living your design in the most authentic way.
Okay, that's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. Okay, so now you use both of these modalities, but then also several other mental wellness modalities as well.
Mhm.
Um, what's like your favorite mental wellness tool that you like to employ?
I talk a lot about journaling. And, I know that there are critics, and some people might say it's really simple, but there's lots of people who don't do it at all. And I tell my clients to throw what the rule book out. Whatever you've ever heard about it, just throw it out. I don't care what you're writing on or how long you're writing or if you're typing or what. I actually tell my sister, because every time she goes through something with me and she's like, Jackie, don't tell me, don't make me journal, please. Don't, I really don't want to do it. I said, you know what? We go on Marco Polo back and forth to each other a lot. I said, you're comfortable on video. Get on video on your phone and talk to yourself, talk it out, and then just delete it, right? But it's getting it out of your head because we just have this constant noise and it's taking up space and it's not serving us. And when we have the ability to actually articulate those feelings, then, and in a way where we're not going to be judged, right? It allows us to be seen, heard, and understood by ourselves. And we really need that is taking our power back. And then it allows us to gain insight, to understand our feelings a little bit deeper, or simply to just let go. Sometimes pending how I'm feeling, I will journal it first, and then I'll do my positive intelligence practice or sandwich it. I don't know. Depends on the day. So that's why sometimes for me it's a system, not necessarily a step by step. But those first two of mindfulness and articulating your feelings, they really are the basis of getting further on.
I'm so grateful you brought up journaling and the different ways that you can do journaling. I think we get in this, one track mind of it has to be written down, it has to be a certain way. And it isn't. The whole point of journaling is to get your garbage thoughts out of your brain, right? And then throw them away. And so I love that you brought that up. Thank you so much. How like using all of these things, right? And obviously the goal is to have mental wellness. So what does that mean for you personally and then as you're helping your clients?
Mm. Mental wellness is a way of life that I want to live. It's calm, it's invigorating, it's happy, it's playful. It's the good things in life. And when life keeps lifing, as it always does, it doesn't take us down. We're able to ride the waves. We're able to have clarity and be innovative on our solutions or simply let go.
That's beautiful. That's wonderful. And I look at that for myself, and there is a freedom to mental wellness that I feel. And I think it's important to note that it's not always static. We're going to have up days and down days. And even when we feel like we're on top of things, there is a cycle. I don't know if cycle is the right word, but there's ups and downs definitely. And but I think that's part of what makes life beautiful too, you know?
I absolutely agree.
Now, can you
Absolutely.
imagine if everything was always just flowery and just wonderful? And I honestly think it would be boring because you look at the stories, it's not, stories like that are not inspiring. What's inspiring is, the how people came out of difficulty and what they learned from it and how they're now living their life. I mean, just like you, it's that overcoming that is so inspiring. And so I just feel so much gratitude in my own story for those difficult times that make the good times just so much sweeter.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious, what does, and I think this is kind of related to the mental wellness, but I think that people may not connect it, right? So what does success mean to you?
Hmm.
And how do you relate that to mental wellness?
Success is finding and living a life of gratitude, celebrating your wins, choosing happiness. And so that brings ties it in exactly with mental wellness. And part of what I focus on is shifting out of self-doubt and towards self-empowerment. Because people who've been abused have had that taken away from them and it lingers for years after. So success is quieting the noise, that pain, that doubt that came, and living your most authentic life.
I think that's beautiful. And it's interesting because I think so many people equate success with money, or the image that they want to portray. And yet, really, it's internal. It's being true to who you are. That's absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was wonderful. So, this has just been a lovely conversation, Jackie, and I've been so grateful for it. You do have a freebie for our listeners. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I have a 5-minute mental wellness guide that I would love for you to be able to download. And that gives you tips that are manageable to help keep you in your calm through all of the chaos. Um, I
Wonderful.
al oh, I'm sorry. I
Sorry, go
also
ahead.
provide a
You're
free
good.
breakthrough session that you're welcome to take advantage of.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And where can our listeners find those resources that you have?
Yeah. So those would be on my website, inspiredjourneyconsulting.com, and they're on the offers page.
Wonderful. And if they want to contact you, can they do that on your website or are there other places that you are at as well?
Yeah, so they can do that on my website, but also I am most often on Instagram at Inspired Journey Consulting or on LinkedIn, Jackie Roby.
Perfect. So before we go, Do you have any other words of wisdom, any golden nuggets that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Mm. You are worthy of your wildest dreams. I alluded to this earlier, but somewhere along the way, we stopped dreaming. And adulting used to be the idea of something glamorous when we were kids. So why don't we get back to that and dream bigger?
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I will make sure that I have all of your links on the show notes. And I am so grateful for what you have shared with us, Jackie. This has been just a very soul-filling conversation for me. And I hope my listeners have felt that as well. So for those of you who are listening, please look up Jackie. She is an amazing human being. She has so much to offer. And it's I honestly think that it is just these people like you, Jackie, who have been through so much and who have overcome. And it just is so inspiring and it gives hope to people who are in the midst of the darkness and that there's light and there is possibilities and the possibilities are endless. So if you are facing this, please know that your purpose is in your story. There is a reason for your story and you can live it. And until next time, take care. Celebrate your dreams, let them take flight.